The huge debt hole that is the governments try to fill by printing lots of money and giving them to banks is mainly caused by derivatives gone bad. And I found this video, it's very good, of somebody that explains how these credit default swaps and insurances worked, and also already points out the dangers, because it's based on, or it was based on, statistics and likelihoods of default in the good times. And the statistics then were very, of course, positive and didn't force you to have lots of collateral to pay off these insurances once they would be activated. Of course, these statistics, these probabilities of default were badly wrong. And we're now suffering from them, and that would also be a reason for somebody to say, you know, all these contracts that were made are no longer valid because they're basically based on seriously wrong information. And if you think about it a second more, then you can see that these banks should have known that their estimations were totally wrong. And so we should call for force majeure on these derivatives. Basically breaking up their contracts and making them void. After all, they're only insurances, so as long as nothing has gone wrong, you can basically cancel them without anybody suffering. So that's. But I'll show a little bit of his video, and of course I link to it next to mine because I think it's a very good one, and it kind of feeds my argument to call for force majeure on derivatives. It's possible, it's easy, and you as a citizen can do it.
Goes from pension fund to B. Now this is a little bit dangerous, right? Because you can think about what's happening. One, as long as this insurer does not get a downgrade from their credit ratings from S&P or Moody's or whoever, they can just keep issuing this insurance. There's no limit for how much insurance they can issue. There's no law that says, you know what, if you insure $1 billion of debt, you have to put $1 billion aside so that if that debt defaults, you have that billion, you definitely have that $1 billion there. Or if you insure $2 billion here, you don't have to put that $2 billion aside. What you have is a bunch of people who statistically say, oh, you know, what's the probability that all of this debt defaults? And, you know, so I just have to keep enough capital so that probabilistically whatever debt defaults, I can pay it. But you don't keep enough capital to pay all of the defaulting debt. So you already see an interesting risk forming. What if all of these corporations, for whatever reason, do start defaulting simultaneously? Then all of a sudden this insurance company has to pay more out in insurance than it might even have, and so you have to wonder whether it even deserves this AA rating, because it actually is taking on a lot of risk. But in the short term, while these companies are, you know, everyone is doing well and the economy is doing well, it's a great business for these guys. These guys are just collecting premiums essentially on the insurance without having to pay out anything. Now let's add another twist on it. You know, these pension funds, P1 and P2, it was reasonable for them to get insurance because, you know, they were giving out these loans and then they got the insurance. So they were essentially hedging the default risk, right, by buying these credit default swaps, which was essentially just an insurance policy from this insurer one. But you could have another party, and you know, this is no less legitimate really, but you could call them, I don't know, let's call it hedge fund one. Hedge fund one. And they've done a lot of work, and frankly, they often are much more sophisticated than the pension funds. In fact, they almost always are. And they say, you know what? Company B looks really, 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 really shady. I think 200 basis points for the chance that Company B defaults is frankly cheap. Because I think there's a huge probability that Company B defaults. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to lend Company B money, because if anything, I think that they're maybe about to go out of business. But what I can do is I can buy a credit default swap on Company B.
I have to stop because the video gets too long, but you can check it out, it's linked next to this one. Call for force majeure, try to find out how that can be done through your district or whatever person is representing you in government. Because it can be done, it's a legal procedure, it's there for you to use to free yourself of this huge debt.